Welcome to the Offshore Club's fun-filled, fact-filled, fast-paced blockbuster podcast with your host and Offshore Club's expat mom, Alyssa Esquivel, coming to you straight from beautiful Belize, where the sun never sets on the good life at a great price. And now, here's your friend, your expert, and your guide, Alyssa Esquivel.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Expat Mom this week. So excited to have you, and thank you for just tuning in to just hear about what it looks like to have your family offshore and just experience life in another culture. And I thought one of the most important aspects, obviously, of being an expat family is our kids. And this conversation we have that goes, okay, we want to move overseas, we want to experience life in another country, we want to have our kids experience other cultures. It takes so many formats in so many ways, and that looks a lot different for a lot of people. And I was thinking about that and really wanted to, in this next couple episodes, be able to bring you the perspective of a child. And that could be grown children, that could be teenagers. As you guys have seen, we have quite a few friends that are raising their family overseas as well. And it's given us this really great perspective of what it looks like to affect our children also. And you guys, I don't think have seen our kids yet at this point for the most part, but if you check out our Instagram this week, you will see our oldest daughter. So our oldest daughter, Faith, is 7. And as I was thinking about this topic from a kid's perspective, or a perspective of the other half of our families, right? So we've got us as far as like my husband and I, but our kids play a huge role in our experiences overseas, and especially our move overseas. And so when I was thinking about my daughter and just her experiences, she's grown up for the most part in Belize. We've been in the States for extended periods of time, maybe 2-3 months at a time, but this has really affected her in a completely different way than it has us. And her cultural experiences, her understanding of the culture here in Belize is totally different than ours. Even though, for all intents and purposes, she is Belizean, her mindset and the way that she processes things is very much a mix of different cultures. And part of that is because she has a mom that's American. And so my culture and the things that I do, simple things like the idea of celebrating Thanksgiving, well, that's not a Belizean holiday, but it is an American holiday, and so we still celebrate in our family. And so just learning about the beauty of both of our cultures, and my husband and I partially also have decided, we want to bring all that all of our cultures have to offer to our children's landscape and their understanding. And so understanding too, what are the things that you hold dear about your own culture when you move to these overseas countries is so crucial. So I wanted to just unpack for you guys the terminology and the wording that we're going to start to use over the next couple weeks as we talk about these other half of our families. So the primary terminology you'll hear is TCK, which is third culture kid. And really what that typically is incorporated before, I'd say about the last 15 years, it's shifted dramatically. But before that, that term TCK, you may have heard before, it was primarily reserved for kids whose parents were diplomats, or whose parents moved overseas and were executives in a foreign country, or were missionaries. And so a third culture kid primarily was a kid who grew up in a culture outside of their home country or their passport country or their parents' passport country. Now that has shifted significantly, and really that term third culture kid really applies more to those who are accompanying their parents. And then cross-cultural kid, or CCK, has been accompanied more with kids who are in what we would call those cross-cultural experiences. And typically that means somebody who's had 2 or more significant cultural experiences, which, given today's day and age, many of our kids, those of us that are expats, or those of us who are digital nomads or are other types of cultural workers, we've experienced that, and our kids have experienced that. They may have lived in 2 or 3 different distinct places. Even myself, we never lived overseas when I was growing up, but we lived in various places in the United States. And in many ways, my viewpoint, I associate with so many of the things that are very common with these cross-cultural kids or TCK mindsets, because I grew up in the Midwest. We lived in California for several years, and that West Coast mindset and culture, and then we lived in Texas for a couple years, and then we moved to DC. And those are all very distinct cultural areas that have different nuances and different ways they operate, different sayings, And so even, when I was in my college years, people would ask me, well, where are you from? And it was hard for me to identify with one specific place. And I might say, oh, well, I moved a lot, but, this is kind of who I am, or this is where I'm at. And that's a very common standpoint for a cross-cultural kid, is that they don't fully identify one place. They're neither this nor they're that. And now, even more so, when you have kids who are being raised overseas, they're going to have that same mindset. So tune in next week. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but keep your ears and eyes focused on those kind of concepts and the idea of being a TCK or a CCK, and we'll delve in more to that next week. Have a great week, guys.
For more information on the Offshore Club or to contact Alyssa Esquivel, visit offshore.club today. Offshore.club. That's offshore.club. See you next time at the Offshore Club.